All right, welcome everyone to an Apokalupsis Historia live show tonight. We are here to discuss, just as everyone else is doing, definitely hopping on this, maybe not bandwagon, but band boat or something like that, this galley, as we're going to be discussing a movie neither Chance and I have actually seen, but I think that, don't worry guys, we don't need to see this movie to make commentary on it, right? Just like, it's all right. And I'm going to be talking about that too. I have a beef with this sort of like, well, you got to see it, man. Like, no, I have a problem with that kind of line. But anyway, before we get started, make sure you check out all the links down below in the description box. We have opened up the Discord to the public, so if you want to come hang out with us real time as we do our sort of Shakespeare research or do our classics, cross connection with mythology and philosophy and all that sort of stuff, make sure you stop by the Discord. Otherwise, if you want to support the channel, other than doing the like, share, subscribe, and all that good stuff, you can come support us through Patreon and get access to all of our book club recordings or join the Areopagus book club itself. And if you don't know what the Areopagus is, then you haven't done your classics research, because it's a super deep cut reference that we use around here. So if you want to join the Smart Kids Club, make sure you check all that down below. And if you also like the things we discuss here tonight, maybe go check out my Iliad course I'm going to be starting up here. More designed for homeschool, youth, as that's been more of my actual professional training work. So if you know anyone that actually wants to learn more about the Iliad, reading of one of the books every single week, if you like our takes, then please come support me in that regard as well. But without further ado, let me turn this off. But without further ado, let's go ahead and discuss this movie that everybody else. There we go. Let's go ahead and discuss this movie, Chance. We're talking about Christopher Nolan's Odyssey. All right, man. I'd have to say before, Chance and I had discussed Christopher Nolan a lot. That would, if you had told us 10 years ago or something, or even 5 years ago, maybe, like, hey man, you are both going to be crapping on a Christopher Nolan movie hardcore here, we'd be like, what? You're crazy, man. Like, how could we do that?
Five's not far enough, but yeah.
Maybe, yeah, right. But we've kind of
5 years ago doesn't even get you to Tenet.
yeah, it's true. That's true. Oh my God, yeah, that's wild. Oh my God, time
It
does
gets you to
fly.
Oppenheimer.
Yeah,
Yep.
because I haven't seen Oppenheimer either. But for me, obviously, Chance and I have always talked about The Prestige as one of our big influences. Of course, I've always liked The Dark Knight as well. That the whole Batman run and all that good stuff. And so, I was kind of a little miffed after Interstellar. I wasn't a big a fan of it. I was like, all right, it's okay. I think that was when it was like very clearly downhill for me anyway. But yeah, this has been a full departure. We've done our own Odyssey now and returned home, and as Chance sort of beat me to the punch when we first started talking about the movie, even before it came out, he's like, yes, I guess Nolan has lived long enough to become the villain, right? So, and I guess I'll follow up with is this the movie we didn't need but we deserved or something, to keep using all the Nolanisms. But yeah, I've got some interesting topics. We've been discussing this thing for a minute, kind of just watching the different sides of the aisle, depending on how you even want to slice this aisle, right? Because we were even having a discussion about where is the aisle anymore? Like what's going on here? And so maybe to lead us off to where I want to do with this is. And I'll flash a picture up here on screen, because when they first kind of dropped the first movie poster for this thing, and I couldn't help but laugh that we kind of got a shot of Agamemnon and this whole thing, and this was the image that was shared, and I just thought obviously the armor looked super hokey for this movie, and people compared it that it looked like Squidward, the Squidward meme from SpongeBob SquarePants, and I couldn't help but kind of feel. And so, yeah, people have already beaten to death how anachronistic this movie is, and that it doesn't even appear to even try to kind of capture the actual, historical bits of this thing. I heard some people like, oh, maybe one of the swords or something, or maybe a little bit of the jewelry or whatever. But obviously a lot of this is just very Nolan-esque, and just, I don't know, just it looks kind of goofy and off. And then here's the other thing I'll kind of show real quick before I tee up Chance here, is that famously what they did for this movie is they rented a Viking longship to be the boat of the movie, right? And they sailed it all the way straight from Norway too, and it was a thing. And they actually apparently even have like an actual Mycenaean replica in the Mediterranean. So it's just like, why go out of your way to just do these total departures from anything trying to be remotely realistic, which is what we like to say that Nolan does all the time. Oh, it's Batman, it's like realistic and blah blah blah, and like, once again, that worked for me back in the day, right? Like, I feel like maybe Batman's the most realistic superhero you can probably get to, right? Oh, rich guy going around using high-tech weapons, like, that's not so far-fetched. And plus, I feel like it does really well because it's half those Batman movies are also like mobster movies, so I feel like they also work on that level. But yeah, something like this is like, why are we using a Viking warship for this movie? Why are we doing all these things? And so, maybe aside from aesthetics or, once again, the historical anachronisms that have already been sort of discussed at length by everybody else, I just wanted to kind of tee this up. But Chance, what was some of your first thoughts when this movie was announced?
So let's see. I guess to be fair to the audience, I have to explain that I've become something of a filmic hermit. I'm Diogenes now when it comes to modern filmmaking. Like, I just kind of blanket reject it after a certain year. And it's, at some point that certain year is arbitrary and it's set in my own personal experience and values, and it's completely subjective, and I get all that. But I am absolutely a film junkie. I'm not a movie hater. Like, for the longest time, film was even with novels for me. And like, as a kid, I could not decide, did I want to write novels or make movies? And, I feel now that I definitely side way towards the literary than the filmic, but it's not because of film as an aesthetic piece. It's because of all the other stuff. I hate how much money is in film. Um, and people are like, oh, that's good, you get to make money. Like, no, I mean, like, I hate that film is like a modern art form, requires like, the GDP of several small countries combined to make a singular film that all of us are going to watch like 2 or 3 times and fucking forget. And like, at best, we're looking it up on some bootleg 10 years later, or streaming it on Netflix on your phone while you're on a train ride. Like, it's fucking meaningless. It's as useful as a TikTok video. It's as relevant as like a billboard on a taxi cab. Um, and so, like, we're in a point in art film, where everything's super saturated, and I'm cool with people trying to compete in that saturation, especially if it's just art coming from the soul kind of thing. But film in the last, in our lifetime, millennials, born late '80s, early '90s, like, that time span, film has exploded in its money making capacities. From the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, like, yeah, it slowly gradually get bigger because of inflation, but like, no, it's shit like Terminator 2 and Jurassic Park that absolutely just break the shit wide open, and all of a sudden films can make hundreds of millions of dollars instead of tens of millions or just ones of millions, which it's already a ton of money, right? But hundreds of millions of dollars is like, yeah, like Puerto Rico's GDP, or Somalia's GDP. Like, it's more than that. Like, if y'all ever get the fucking ads on YouTube where, come feed the children who are starving in Sudan because they're not getting fed. Like, I don't need to donate money to you. Christopher Nolan needs to not make the Odyssey and just give you his fucking budget, and Sudan will be like one of the top 15 countries in the world all of a sudden. Like, you know, so that political standpoint aside, like, I have distanced myself from film, and this has been an ongoing process since the mid 2000s when I started to get, really turned off by like kind of high budget but low quality franchise films, especially anything that had like a sequel trilogy, 4 or 5, like Shrek or Fast and the Furious or Transformers or that shit. Like, that was the absolute beginning of the end. And yeah, Netflix culture has not helped it. It, maybe gave us a small little respite from it, but it Netflix has become that, such that Stranger Things isn't a way of getting away from the franchise big budget. It's just another iteration of it. Um, so that said, I have a weird relationship with Nolan. Like, I was saying to Brady the other day that Nolan is for people like Brady and I, like that is what Wagner was for Nietzsche, right? That it is as a young person, this is the artistic creation that seems like it is taking you in this new direction, in this incredibly exciting new direction, that it's saying things that couldn't be said before, that it's doing it in ways that feel more real, more vitality than you've ever seen before. Um, but as that career of that artist goes on, it starts to, you know, kind of move away from you. It moves away from itself. And so, like, at some point, Nietzsche went and totally rejected Wagner, saying, like, Wagner's just become a universalist. He's just become another purveyor of Christian ethos, which Nietzsche was not a huge fan of. Like, if you're a fan of that, cool, but Nietzsche wasn't. So he liked Wagner because he did not think Wagner was pushing a Christian ethos. He thought he was pushing something new, this Germanic, romantic, new vitalic, related to classics. And but as Wagner's career went on, more and more Christian ethos popped up, and then at some point he's just a pure universalist. And Nietzsche fucking hates universalism. He's a total pluralist. Doesn't think that everything can be explained by one superstructure or one idea or something like that. Whereas, yeah, Wagner and Christianity and Platonic thought and all sorts of other stuff, very universal. That's what Nietzsche was rejecting. And so I don't know if that's specifically the case here with Nolan, though I do think that that is at play. But I think something like that's sort of happening, not just for me and for Brady, but for a lot of people, dudes, probably specifically around our age, maybe a little younger, maybe a little older. And it's that, yeah, circa 2000 with Memento. Insomnia is all right. I'll skip over Insomnia because he didn't write it, neither did his brother. But yeah, you get to Batman Begins, like that's a whole new superhero genre. It totally revolutionized, like, Raimi had totally revolutionized it himself, and within just a few years of Raimi doing that, Nolan did something even entirely newer and entirely more realized, and made Raimi's all of a sudden look like, 90s popcorn, looked like a cartoon, and so such that they had to reboot Spider-Man again. Like, Raimi's couldn't just sit on the shelf, and they had to make it darker, more realized in a Nolan style fashion. Of course, the Garfield Spider-Mans were a complete flop, but
Totally influenced the Man of Steel, Zack Snyder stuff too.
Yep, absolutely, yeah. And for that matter, like non-superhero movies, like Inarritu with The Revenant, or like Villeneuve is the biggest one, right? Everything Villeneuve is so serious and realized and grayscaled, and it's like that's all Nolan's influence.
Those two did a video recently, or at least a little promotion. It's both of those guys, like everything needs to be shot on IMAX or whatever. It's Villeneuve and Nolan together, and yeah, they both have the exact same sort of aesthetic. Essentially, yeah, is very interesting. Kind of,
It's funny.
I think it's a little brutalist. Maybe maybe I could almost say that, because I would definitely see people saying that the new Dune movie is very brutalist in its depiction of the space stuff. Whereas, like, just to put it in contrast, right? When Jodorowsky, if you go watch Jodorowsky's Dune and his concept, which he definitely said he wanted to, I guess I don't know if I can say the word online, but he wanted to grape the book, is what he said he wanted to do to Dune, right? But it's like, it actually looks fantastic. It actually looks science fiction.
Your language, ravish.
Ravish. Yeah, there you go.
That's a gentlemanly way of saying it.
Have his way.
Not but yeah, like, in Jodorowsky, if he had gotten to, like, I would love to see that, because like at some point, like, that's a little bit the complaint tonight, right? That's secretly what Nolan's doing, right? Like, we've got the South Park Inception meme, but like you can also think of the South Park Indiana Jones episode where they're ravishing Indiana Jones. Ravishing him. They don't say ravishing, but yeah. So Nolan was like, The Prestige is still to me like the great movie of the 2000s. That was the movie for me. There's other movies out there, but I still think the world of The Prestige, I think that's a wonderful enigma of a movie. And like it totally jump started so many weird things that people don't realize. Like That's the first time anybody heard about Tesla, and then fucking Zuckerberg, you know, or Zuckerberg, Elon
Mm-hmm.
Musk, any of those douchebags, um, Muskerberg, whatever. Um, yeah, like there's there were some seeds thrown into that movie, and I don't think a lot of us realized that. And looking back, like yes, it's propaganda, but all great film is propaganda, and it's just what is the value of that propaganda? So I'll turn it back over to you here in a second, Brady. But yeah, just saying that, Brady already mentioned it with Interstellar, but yeah, we move into Dark Knight trilogy, into Inception, and Interstellar, into Dunkirk, and into Oppenheimer, into the Odyssey. And I do think that there is a growing universalism in Nolan. I think that there's always traces of it, even in Dark Knight. But like he has gotten to this point of like that's why he looks like a woke leftist to everybody, even though that's not really what Nolan is because he is so right now collectivist and universalist, and Nolan is like he's trying too hard in my own opinion that he's trying to bring balance to the force. Like he is trying to bridge a gap, and it's hilarious to me that like the reaction for so many people is that this has actually acted like a wedge instead of a bridge, right? But yeah, the wedge is the surface level. I think the deeper incipient inceptive points, that's the bridge, and that's what we're not realizing. Um, uh, but like I don't know that some people want a bridge right now, so it's just like take it as it is. But yeah, let me turn it back over to you because I'm rambling now.
No, it's good. Yeah, I think because yeah, get into this idea of the wedge and just maybe we can start that off as our springboard here because when we say that, it's like we were discussing this off air and in the weeks leading up to this is that it almost seemed like not it because yeah, most of the people on the right would be like, oh, this is just woke leftist garbage, and we're talking about the low hanging fruit obviousness, right? Where the main kerfuffles that were all sort of the talking points in the media is just how it's all the quote unquote race swapping, right? And that people of certain ethnic backgrounds are swept for characters um, and so it's obvious bait to get people talking about the movie right away, right? And even people and that someone like Ellen Page or Eric Page or wherever the hell their name is,
Elliot,
being put into a warrior position, and people had surmised before that maybe they'd been cast as Achilles prior, right? But then they totally they pull the rug out from you because they actually insert a character that's actually like not even in the Odyssey, and they redo a scene in Nolan's version where Achilles does talk to Odysseus does talk to Achilles' ghost in the Odyssey, but in this one he's talking to Sinon, this other character that he doesn't actually talk to. So they're so people are like that's what people leading up to the movie like, hey, it looks like this person's dead. Oh my god, they're gonna be playing Achilles, right? Which is an obvious like once again another bait, another thing for people that are more traditional minded, a lot more right wing minded. Are definitely going to have problems with this thing. And you're also just going to have the left that obviously wants to defend anything like that, right? Because they're just obviously like, oh, you're just a hater, or you just this or that, right? Or you're just an ism this or an aces that, right? And so it just, once again, the movie was already sort of baiting wedge conversations, is already driving, angst between two different sides already, right off the bat. And obviously even for however people feel about the race swapping or whatever sort of moral take you or ethical take you want to have on any of that stuff, right? We're not here to really talk about that aspect. Other people have that. I've got certain qualms with just how certain characters are depicted essentially, right? Because I'm kind of working through the Odyssey myself. I haven't seen the movie, and I hadn't even read all the Odyssey before, so I'm actually working through it myself. I actually read the Iliad pretty in depth last year, and so I'm obviously this is going to be the next one. So as I'm going through this, and as I actually have a scene pulled up here that someone had a bootleg from the theater, right? And hopefully I've got it in a way that I won't get kicked off YouTube here. And I don't know if this is how I want to start it, but yeah, because this will actually lead also into a stream that we just actually did on Dr. Faustus, right? Because of the line that they're going to use in this movie, which is a line that everybody kind of knows about this character of Helen, right? The most quote unquote beautiful woman in the world, right? The face that launched 1,000 ships, right? And people be like, oh, Shakespeare. And we get to be like, no, that's not Shakespeare. That's Christopher Marlowe. So definitely go watch our Dr. Faustus stream on that, because we totally blow that play wide open and really and dig into that line as well, right? Chance talking about how it's an Adria Noeta line. I think I said it correctly. Is that
Adria Noeta?
Yeah, and that it's kind of a tongue-in-cheek line almost in the play. It's not even like an earnest line where they're saying that. They're not really like, wow, like the face that launched 1,000 ships. It's more of like, this is the face that launched 1,000 ships. Like, yeah, it's like almost like a cringe line, right? And so I'll show you the scene here in just a second, right? And to kind of show you what I mean too. And well, here's another problem too. So Menelaus, one of the famous characters, he is actually one of the Atreides, if we're also talking about Villeneuve and Dune, right? Because that's actually the last name of the characters in the Dune book, the Paul Atreides, right? The Atreides are actually just the sons of Atreus, right? And the sons of Atreus are going to be Agamemnon and Menelaus, okay? So they're characters in the Iliad. We've talked about Aeschylus before and the Arrested trilogy and Agamemnon, but we've got John Bernthal playing Menelaus in the Odyssey here. And first I want to show you this clip from The Wolf of Wall Street, because it just kind of encapsulates.
Bernthal. I was gonna say that really was Bernthal's star role, I think.
Yeah, and this kind of encapsulates, I feel like, the this character that he just kind of plays in general, which is just himself, right? And I've got this bit here where he's kind of like, you know, he's very much like, not only is he kind of a misogynist in this scene when you're first introduced to his character here, that he's kind of haranguing this, maybe not haranguing is the right word, but he's definitely harassing this like waitress or whatever about getting ketchup, and then he kind of says like some stuff to this young kid about wanting to talk to his sister, right? The young kid's like, dude, she doesn't like you. But you see how he's doing this thing where he's kind of like, I'm talking all cool and I'm kind of talking to myself and looking off and not making eye contact with the people here. He's kind of doing this thing where this bit or whatever, right? That's exactly what he's going to do in this scene when you're introduced to him in Nolan's Odyssey, right? You can kind of see on here, imagine you knew who I am. So I don't know if I should, but I'll play this. Maybe I'll play the scene real quick, and then y'all can, and then I'll discuss the differences between the actual Homer version, right? So we'll try not to play it too loud, so hopefully I don't get kicked off here. But y'all let me know if y'all can hear it. I don't know if Chance can hear it or not.
I'm Menelaus, son of Atreus.
It's just same thing where he's like looking off because Telemachus is off to his side.
Brother of Agamemnon.
It's the Italian mobster trope.
Yeah, and that's, I think, it's kind of relevant too, right? So, the husband of Helen.
Heard of Helen? Face. I launched 1,000 ships. And maybe now just 500.
So he's, kind of doing this whole thing where he's like, touching her face and definitely treating her like this object thing too. And when he's just kind of playing himself too, right? I'm still just John Bernthal. I'm the Punisher, man. Like, it's just the exact same person still. And yeah, dude, there's so many things I could just talk about this one scene, right? So not only is he, kind of using the line, like a slight inversion where he's like, oh, the face that launched 1,000 ships. Well, now she's only worth 500 ships, right? Because obviously she kind of took some battle scars or whatever during the siege of Troy. And even like this, he's kind of like creeping out Telemachus, who's the son of Odysseus, right? And because Telemachus is kind of getting this like horrified look, right? He's just like, yeah, dude, like stop talking to me, like you're scaring me. And so now that I've actually read this scene, which is like it's only like in book 2 or 3 of the Odyssey, right? So this is in some of the opening scenes here. In the opening scenes, it's actually like a kinship thing. Like, dude, they're actually like super cool with one another. Menelaus is like, hosts him at his house and like, really making him invited. And eventually Telemachus is going to ask him about like, hey, I'm trying to find information about my dad. I don't really know what happened to him. Menelaus, actually before he finds out that, Menelaus is just talking about all the bros at the Trojan War. He's like, my brother's dead. His actual brother is dead. And he talks about Nestor. We know he's the wise guy on the Greek side, but then he's like, but nobody else was better than Odysseus, man. That dude like helped me out. He bailed me out here. He bailed me out there. And it's actually like a heartfelt moment when Telemachus, it's revealed that he's actually Odysseus' son, right? And Menelaus is like, dude, you should stay here for 11, 12 days. And when you leave, let me hook you up with some horses. Let me hook you up with like, dude, if your dad was here, I would have given him like his own like little town in my town, right? I would have totally hooked him up with that way we could just be bros. And like, I'm totally doing this like low speech thing, but we would have totally been, we would hang out every single night if we could, right? Because that's how much I owe him and how much I honor him, right? And where this one, they've got this sort of like antagonized sort of thing you're going on here, right? And then to also boot, Menelaus, when you get Helen in here, Helen comes out and she's like, very regal. She's got like the people of the house are giving her like these fancy footstools to sit on and golden scepters to hold. And her and Menelaus are definitely like are cordial. They are, actually there's no animosity between them. Where obviously in this Nolan version, there's obviously they're obviously are not cool with one another, right? And even he's got this sort of like possessive thing about her too, right? And not even just race swapping here. Forget Helen, right? Which is obviously the main point that everyone wanted to talk about. Lupita, John Bernthal's bald in this version of the Odyssey, and in one of the famous epithets of Menelaus, he's always called tawny-haired Menelaus, right? So he's supposed to be kind of like blondish or even red-haired. And John Bernthal's bald, just clear departures from the text, and it's just like mind-boggling. Like, why do this? Like you couldn't even find anybody to even give him a wig. Like it just seems like once again every single choice is supposed to be like this sort of like inversion of the original thing, and it's just like starts to beg the question of like why do that sort of thing, right? Why make this famous character that's always got a particular thing and have him bald the whole time? And it's just so confusing to me. And I don't know if you have anything you want to comment on that about just why take this famous character with and people have also made this thing too, so I'm also not trying to give more of these right-wing people, not that I have any beef with them or anything, or not that I'm gonna I'm not gonna try to shut them down, but you're giving them more ammo for things to complain about, right? Like because that's been a thing in media that they're erasing all these red-haired character people, right? You got little, Ariel kind of been race swapped. You got the chick from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. She was kind of replacing the Magic card games with like a black chick instead, right? And this time they just shaved his hair off. So it's almost like any famous red-haired character, they keep like shoving him aside, and kind of like getting rid of it. So I don't know if there's a plot against red-haired people or something like that, because apparently they are like the lowest.
Daywalking.
Yeah, there's a South Park joke in there somewhere.
And South Park's ruined me, but I don't know. I do think that you're right that it's a purposeful inversion, but I'm not so sure that there's actually any sort of tangible objective or like definitive objective to that. Like I do think it's like inversion for inversion's sake, as in like let's see what happens when we invert everything. Because at some point, like there's a reason he picked Wilson's translation, right?
Well, apparently, people are pushing back against that now. Apparently, he did cite that, but then Wilson's like, well, it's not, but I think she's kind of wrong too. I don't think we need to follow up on that thing, but continue because it's still in the zeitgeist, whether people know it or not.
Right. At some point, I think there's like several inversions happening in this. In that, okay, so we have something of a colonial American experience being portrayed here. He's something of the Southern slaveholder.
Yeah,
and
he's like doing the face thing.
Yeah, using her as an object. Like he casts her to be black for a reason. It wasn't. I don't think that it was just like let's let anybody in the room and Lupita won the job. Like I hate to say it like that because she is good. Like I don't know about in this movie, but she's a good actress. But yeah, it seems that he very clearly wanted this so that he could have this sort of relationship. And as such, like, the Greeks are now the bad, nasty Americans, right?
Yes.
Not maybe Southerns, maybe conservatives, but at some point, let's remember, Nolan's not American. Nolan's a dirty, limey redcoat, right? Like, which to be clear, Shakespeare's from America. But continuing on, before anybody says different. Um, uh, okay, so at some point, Trojans are always British, right? Like there's an absolute
Mm.
fucking fetish in the world for Trojanism and Troy as this fallen empire thing. As this it's literally the how, and I know this may be a controversial comment, but how the Jewish people feel about their diaspora from Egypt and Moses and fleeing the Romans and then later Arabs. Like that's how British people talk about Troy, like historically. I know not every British person's out on the sidewalk going, like, oh, I'm a Trojan, but like no, like if you've read your British history from Geoffrey of Monmouth to Raphael Holinshed to Shakespeare, onwards, even into Wolfgang Petersen's Troy with Brad Pitt. Like the Trojans are always a little more British, and it because Britain historically has had this sort of cultural legend that they do descend from Troy. And I think that's related to being a descendant of Rome, and Rome itself thinks it's a descendant of Troy. And so it's not only Britain, it's also Roman, but it's very empire. Like those are the two most successful empires in history, right? Roman Empire and British Empire. I know some people be like, "Oh, what about the Islamic Empire?" Well, right now it's not the most successful. If they come and take over everything, we'll change our minds. But right now British own everything, so they won. We're all speaking English. We're not learning Arabic, right? Um,
There's no Saudi Arabia without British intelligence, so.
right. Like exactly. So I think what's interesting about that is that there's actually a subtle inversion happening there. Um, the Trojans are essentially what Americans felt about the South in a certain 19th century year, right? They're the empire that fell. Yet we have the Greeks that are sort of reenacting that American Southern, you know, um, colonial slavery kind of crap, antebellum slavery kind of crap. And so at some point, I think this is a little bit about Matt Damon is, your good American, and it's what it's like to be part of this really horrible, shitty country that has taken down good stuff like Britain and Europe and blah, blah, blah. Right. And that, this isn't the Iliad movie, so this isn't about that downfall or that process. This is about the post process of that. This is about living in a world of American hegemony, right? And at some point, Nolan, and this is what Doctor what's his face,
Johannes
yeah,
Niederhauser.
yes, Niederhauser, Doctor Niederhauser. This was his whole pitch that Nolan's trying to basically bring everything to a post World War II zeitgeist where we all look to hierarchical superstructures like the United Nations, but it's all still very universalist within that hierarchical structure, and that we're all in this sort of shared thing where we do need order, but we need to be sensible and humane about it. And dude, that's great. That's great if it's 19 fucking 72, but it's 2026, and like that's beyond the compass right now, right? And so my problem with this movie is it's already outdated. This movie's like just trying to bring balance to the force is trying to put the monkey back in the model. Monkey only comes out, doesn't go back in. It's not gonna happen. And so at some point, this is a fantasy movie. This isn't a history movie. This is a fantasy movie. It's not about showing what happened in history. It's about fantasizing how we could have done history differently. And it's not about the Odyssey or Greek or blah blah blah. It's about post World War II 20th century. And it's also about 21st century's feeling of the burden of that 20th century legacy.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, I think it's a cohesion effort. And yeah, there's going to be bumps and stuff at the start, but that wedge, that's just pushing out people that won't be able to cohere, right? So anybody getting pushed out by the wedge, that's not an accident. That's Nolan saying you're not going to be part of the collective. If you are able to get wedged out by this movie, you can't be part of Balance to the Force. You are going to be a casualty of war. Yeah, I don't want to belabor any of these points too much, but I do see all of those aspects at work here. Which it's like, Chance, how do you see those aspects? I didn't watch the movie, right? 1, trailers, 2, internet commentary, 3, bootleg. Clips of bootleg. It's enough. It's enough, guys. It really is. I've seen so many Nolan movies. Seen so many movies. I didn't even see Oppenheimer. I didn't need to see Oppenheimer. Saw the trailers, internet commentary, bootleg clips. And everything that I thought about it is being told back to me by other people. And I know it sounds like confirmation bias, but I'm actively trying to get people to tell me not what I want to hear. I'm trying to get people to tell me something different, to prove me wrong. And no, that movie turned out to be exactly what I thought it was. And we could do another podcast on Oppenheimer, but I'm still not going to watch it. But yeah, back to you, Brady. I'll let you ramble a little bit.
I think that in this antebellum South thing is going to come up again, and you brought up a great literary reference that really opened my eyes to it, and that just actually is going to probably cement that point in just a little bit too. But yeah, so right away, just to compare, this is like an opening scene in the Odyssey too, right? So that's why I was able to actually be like, yeah, this is a complete departure from the source text. And so if you like the Odyssey, it's just not Homer's Odyssey. Like and we already had this discussion about maybe if they just didn't call it the Odyssey, if they called it an Odyssey or just Odysseus or something like that. Maybe I'll do this point first because I think it'll lead into the next point, right? Then one of the other famous casting kerfuffles that people have been discussing a lot is the choice of casting Zendaya as Athena, right? And Athena is like actually when you're reading the Odyssey, and another thing we're missing out too, and I'll have this come up later too, is about the gods themselves are just obviously not depicted in a godly fashion. They're much more Freudian, psychological, Jungian, scientific terms, or ways that we can sort of understand the modernity, right? Because that's all Nolan's doing is just bringing Homer's transcendental world down to this modern world and having our modern sensibilities backcasted into this era, right? Which is once again maybe something I'll talk about later about what's the even point of reading these goddamn things if we're not actually trying to understand where they're coming from. We're just trying to project our own sort of feelings on this thing the whole time. But so let me pull up a picture here just so we can have what we're talking about, because I'm not even going to talk about the race swapping part or what Athena is supposed to look like, right? Because one of Athena's famous epithets, right, is gray-eyed Athena, right? And for as much as people like Zendaya or whatever, she's just not what people would picture as what Athena looks like, which is once again not the point I'm going to be making here. The point I'm going to be making here is actually how they utilize the mechanism of this character in this movie, right? So here's Matt Lehman playing Odysseus, and you've got Zendaya.
He's starting to look like Philip Seymour, bro.
or look like he could play a Philip K. Dick. I could see him doing that, right? I could see if you got a little fatter, got a little unhinged. But so you got Zendaya in here in the background. So Athena, once again, in the actual story in the Odyssey, she's actually dressed up, or she puts on appearances of other people all the time, right? But then she does like a bunch of badass stuff, like zips up through the ceiling in the house, and then Telemachus is like, okay, that must have been a god, because that stuff doesn't happen. Even though I was just talking to like this old man. That's who she was dressed up as, this guy named Mentor, or Mentes, there's Mentes. Anyway, so Zendaya's here. Is obviously she's cast as Athena, but what happened is that I think in the opening of the movie you get the Trojan horse thing. You get them doing the whole bit where they bring the horse in and then they sack the city, right? And what's happened is that Matt Damon basically has he's got a guilty conscience. He kind of feels bad because what actually happened is so they're raiding Troy, they're having a good time, and Zendaya's character here, this is supposed to be Athena here, probably in the scene, but what actually happened is that you're watching the siege of Troy, and Matt Damon basically witnesses, a civilian get killed or whatever, right? It's a casualty, and so that's what Zendaya actually was. She was actually just some girl in the city, and she gets killed during, obviously the fighting, and so this is Matt Damon's psyche, Suke, talking to him, and that's, he's talking to Athena, quote unquote, but Athena's taking on this appearance of this dead girl that he actually witnessed during the siege, okay? So that's, once again, we were already in this sort of post-Freudian world, and that it's all just mental illness and guilt, and which is, I think, is another Nolan thing I would like to get to in just a second here. But this trope that it's, this mind thing, we already talked about the antebellum South. Chance, what was the literary reference that you already found that is pretty much what he's kind of doing here, that Nolan's doing here, and that maybe confirms this that the previous conversation with Menelaus?
Guide me here. Wait, I've said so many things.
A Toni Morrison book.
Yes, thank you. Sorry, that's where I thought you were going. Okay, yeah. So, where are you, Tone Dog? I need to get to the ends. No, no. Wait. Oh. Boom. All right, there's Tone Dog. Okay, so. Toni Morrison's one of the great American authors. She is a Black woman, or was. She died somewhat recently. Honest to God, I would love to do just a podcast on her Beowulf and Tolkien essays. Fascinating. And Tony's one of the few PC, as in post-colonial, not politically correct, but post-colonial authors that I do dig into because she's so super fucking talented. But this is her most famous book. It won all the awards, Pulitzer's, National Book Awards. It's what won her the fucking Nobel Prize. If we exclude that ass clown Bob Dylan, she's the last American to win the Nobel Prize for Literature. And we do exclude that ass clown Bob Dylan because he's a talentless hack who didn't even write his own stuff. That said, shots fired. This book is set in antebellum South. It's about a lady that's a slave. She gets ravished. That's become a theme today. She gets ravished by her slave owner, master, and I don't like using that word master. Her slave owner, fuck using that word master. She gets pregnant, and she does not want to have the baby. Get into abortion kind of stuff here, and baby gets killed and buried. She doesn't do abortion because they're slaves and they don't have those kind of amenities. But what happens is she goes about her slave life, and pretty soon this new girl comes to town, and this new girl that comes to town happens to have the same name that she had sort of nicknamed the baby, which was Beloved. And that lady's full grown, and that lady's also this incredible sexual creature, played by Thandie Newton in the movie. That beloved girl ends up seducing our main character's husband and starts ruining her life, and it haunts her, and it's all this trauma, PTSD stuff, and it's a way to try to use that device to talk through it. And so it's this is basically the same device, but a lot simpler, reduced, and less nuanced, right? In Morrison, it's not just something that comes back as your angel shoulder conscience, like it's a fucking Barney episode. No, in Toni Morrison, it's this horrible, evil force. It's not this thing oh no, I got this guilt inside of me. That's part of it, right? But yeah, it's this evil force that you can't even put words to. You can't define why it's bad. It just ruins your life, And I think that there's something way deeper about that in Tony. And yeah, she wrote this back in 1985. They made a movie of it in like 90 something. It starred Oprah Winfrey. It's 4 hours long. She pees in a hole. You can see it for yourself. I just would recommend reading the book instead. But yeah, yeah. I think that yeah, there is actually a literal connection here in that we're using the same ghost trauma thing, and yeah, this is a trope in tons of horror stories, right? House on Haunted Hill. It's not her trauma; it's her closet lesbianness, right? That haunts her. This is a horror genre trope, and I hate horror movies. I reject it categorically. It's stupid. Don't believe in it. But yeah, you have to lend to a certain amount of Freudian thought, Jungian thought, and like you have to kind of be cool with this like almost bad theater metaphor where it's like, oh wow, she's a personification of the guilt. And it's like, yeah, dude, like as the thumbnail says, go on deeper. So like, sure, this is a plot device to me. This isn't even fucking thematic. Like, it's 2026. Who doesn't understand how fucking guilt works? Who doesn't understand how basic Freudian psychology works? Like, I thought we were past that shit. Like that's such 90s stuff, right? Like, I love you, you love me. Like, do the right thing, Spike Lee. Like, why are we still here? Like, I don't. Yeah, my bad.
Oh, that was good.
Go on.
No, it's good because talking about this guilt PTSD thing, it's such a not only is it talking about these we're already kind of framing it in this like antebellum South sort of type thing too, which was American guilt. We've got post World War II, couldn't stop the Holocaust guilt. We've got this Iraq War guilt now, right? And it's just constant sort of like retrocast, like, oh, our past is just filled with our bad naughtiness and we're just a bunch of bad boohoos. And I think it also, people have been talking about this idea of we live in a therapy culture thing, right? That it's like, oh, we've got therapy dogs and we do this, oh, this thing is like therapeutic and blah, 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 blah. And even these movies, when some people are talking about, oh, it was a therapeutic movie too, right? It's just like so up its own butt doing that sort of thing. And once again, it doesn't actually solve anything. It just allows you to like pedestalize you're feeling bad. And it's like this post, I keep using all these postisms, right? We're postmodern, so suck it up. We're in a post confession too, right? Because it's once again we're still in this sort of this idea of
Yep.
Nolan is someone, maybe I heard it tested that he's like an ex-Catholic of some sort, but he still is racked with all this sort of white guilt, white and all that sort of stuff too, and Christian guilt and all that sort of stuff. And all of his movies.
I promise this is. Oh yeah, go on.
Last thing.
I promise this is my last South Parkism. But sometimes trauma dead people manifests itself as Athena. Leo DiCaprio. Trauma of my dead wife manifests itself as trains.
No, exactly though. But think about it. All of Nolan's movies deal with the same thing too, right? You just brought up Inception, right? He's guilty and he's got to get over his guilt and go home to his kids. Batman, he feels all bad that he didn't stand up and do something about stopping his parents from getting killed when he was a kid or whatever, right? And so he's got to do something about it. Right? He's got guilt about his dead girlfriend in the second movie, right? Interstellar, he's got guilt about leaving
Insomnia.
Oppenheimer, he's got guilt about making guilt about blowing people up now with big bombs.
Being Shiva, destroyer worlds. Yeah. The only one that doesn't fit into that, the only one that does not fit, is The Prestige.
Hold on, let me find it.
Because there's
Christian Bale's character has guilt about killing Hugh Jackman's wife.
Does he though?
A little bit, maybe a little bit. It's part of it.
It's left ambiguous. Like guilt is used as a trope or device in it, but it's not fetishized or spotlit, right?
That's the Prestige. I actually don't feel guilty the whole time.
Like Hugh Jackman, like literally says that. He's like, I don't know if I'm the guy going in the box or not, but it doesn't matter so long as I'm the guy coming out on stage. I have no guilt. He's the one that constantly tries to get revenge for his wife and fuck up Christian Bale's life. There is zero guilt with Jackman's character. And Christian Bale, because it's two characters, one of them is completely guiltless, right? It's the other one. But it's not so much that it cripples them or it becomes this fetish like it is with
Right.
and I guess Dunkirk, it's not straight up guilt as much as it's like this odd nagging sense of duty, which could become guilt. But yeah, Dunkirk just sucks because nobody talks. I don't care how well fucking shot it is. You got to talk in a movie. A silent movie stopped in 1927 for a reason. I'll go watch Wings starring fucking Clara Bow. You know, like first Academy Award winning Best Picture, by the way.
So yeah, just like it's become apparent to me that I read this other essay, and I'll talk about this essay here in a second. Actually, I'll just give him a shout out. That it kind of noticed that in a lot of the films, and that what sort of psychological mechanism is really being worked through here as well. You know, because it's all this like, oh, I feel bad and guilty and bad, and it's just like kind of going back to maybe Nietzsche, right? This like idea of the spirit of resentment or the spirit of revenge against the past or something like that, and that it's just a psychological, anti-vitalist, slowly decaying force, essentially, right?
Yeah, or put it into Jungian terms or Freudian terms, like you were building a disorder, like you were building a form of psychosis.
And if we want to, it's like they're trying to also do this whole thing about making the Greeks feel guilty about the Trojan War, and bring this back up too. The Greeks as bad guys, because even if you read the Iliad, they still even portrayed the Trojans as being, there's still some honorable people on that side, right? Sure, because don't forget the war started, even if we're taking the mythological narrative here. The Trojans started because they not only did they steal not only did they steal Helen away from Menelaus, but they also took a bunch of his shit too. It wasn't just like they took, he literally stole like gold and stuff away from him, right? So, and they won't give it back. Like they won't give it back. Like that is sort of as far much as war is bad, like that's why the war is actually is okay.
Wait, you're saying Britain went and took some stuff that wasn't theirs and they won't give it back? Oh wait, sorry, Troy. My bad.
And so even you get scenes of Hector in the Iliad, and he is portrayed as like honorable and like he's doing his duty, and like he's still kind of but everyone hates Paris and everyone thinks Paris sucks. But there's still some touching scenes with him and his wife and his son. Like he's still not just like totally lampooning him like, oh, he's just doofus bad guy the whole time. No, like they're actually giving some actual weight to the other side. Where I saw someone point this out in this essay that it's actually the Aeneid's version of the Trojan War, because once again the Aeneid is actually how about Aeneas is a survivor of the Trojan War and escapes and basically is going to be part of like starting up Rome, right? Kind of laying the foundations later on in that. But it's that they're the ones who were the sort of, the Greeks are just the foreign invaders and coming up and being bad guys. And it's kind of like not maybe playing fair to, even once again, even mythological terms here, not being fair to both things, right? It's just portraying them as bad and, big bad guys that just were being mean to us the whole time when, and that's kind of interesting, because it's great that you already connected it to Britain in all that sense too, and obviously Nolan. But it's like, and once again making one of the most famous Greek heroes ever, a wily, crafty man of many turns, is just poo poo. I'm just bad, and I'm paying my penance here by having to like be in exile and not make my way home, and like all my poor comrades are dying because it's my fault. And it's just, even though the Odyssey book is strictly making it clear that it's when mortals get hubris. It's like they go above their station. They are doing things that are out of the allowed, even grievances, right? It's like, okay, you can go sack this city and then leave. And so, they sack a city, maybe take a couple ladies, and they're like, Odysseus is like, all right, we got to leave. And the rest of his crew is like, nah, let's just stay and like take more stuff. Let's take more stuff. And what happens? They start to get their butts handed to them, right? And so it's a constant motif here. Even when there was one bit where it was talking about Menelaus is learning about what happened to some of the other survivors of the war, and this guy, it's actually, his name is Proteus, the old man of the sea, is telling him this, and he's like, and there was this one dude, I think his name is like Gaius or Gaius, I'm totally, it starts with a G, and he's like, this dude, he was on his way, and Poseidon smashed his ship, but he survived, and so he was allowed to survive on top of this rock. And then he was like kind of doing the Rick Sanchez thing. He's like, I survived without any of the gods' help. And then so the gods are like, nope, never mind. And they like send like a giant wave or thunderbolt or whatever and like crash the rock, and then he plummets into the sea, right? So that's a constant thing where like certain things are allowed up until a certain point. You got to know your limits, essentially, right? And that's also one of the and they don't even show this in the movie too. Once again, and I'd like to use this as a segue here. One of the famous things in the Odyssey and the actual Homer text is that when they're on the Cyclops' island, Odysseus he tells the Cyclops that his name is Nobody, right? Cyclops is Polyphemus is saying like what's your name, and Odysseus says, oh no, everyone calls me Nobody. My friends, my family, everybody calls me Nobody. Because then later on when they're trying to escape, he stabs him in the eyeball. Odysseus stabs the Cyclops in the eye, and they're trying to get out of there, and the Cyclops is calling to his brethren saying, nobody attacked me, nobody has hurt me. So that's the whole kind of pun or the trick, right? That they're like, okay, well, if nobody hurt you or nobody's doing anything to you, I guess we won't lend you any aid. So then they're pretty much escaped. They're on the Odysseus and his men they're getting away, and that's when Odysseus decides to say, hey, by the way, I stabbed you and you're blind now, and my name is Odysseus, by the way. When he could have just left, he could have just, he had it, he got what he needed, he was out of there, but he just had to just press one more time and just, say, and because he's insulting one of Poseidon's sons. Polyphemus is actually one of Poseidon's sons, the Cyclops that he wounded, and so that's what gets Poseidon really pissed off at him, is because you're already allowed to leave. You really didn't need to rub dirt in the eye or insult in the eye to keep to remain on metaphor here. And I guess as far as this inversion of certain aspects of the story is that memory is culture, and that they are kind of erasing memory here. They're erasing the collective memory, especially when you get to beam out a movie, a really hot medium version of a piece of media here to everybody. And this is going to be some people's impression of the Odyssey now is going to be this film now, because we live in a post-literate world too, so people are obviously not going to be reading it in the way that they used to or engaging with it. So they're erasing history, they're erasing culture by doing it. We don't have tawny-haired Menelaus, we don't have wily or charismatic Odysseus here for sure. We're just changing so much context, and what does that really have as ramifications for civilization down the line too?
So I want to bring it back to Menelaus real quick, and bring it back to John Bernthal for a second, and maybe complicate things, because I'm sitting here pitching that the Greeks are the Americans. They're the bad boogeyman policemen of the world that can just go in and do whatever they want, and that works anytime after 9/11, right? Like anytime in Nolan's movie making career, this metaphor could work. It works especially well right now because of all the Hormuz Iran shit, right? But I want to make an interesting connection here, because okay, Bernthal doesn't look at all correct, right? But who's the last guy to play Menelaus famously?
I know what he looks like. It's technically an older looking dude. I don't know his name, and he gets killed
So
in that movie too.
Yeah, it's Brendan Gleeson, and Brendan Gleeson always dies in every movie. Fun fact, every movie just
Sean
about.
Bean doesn't die in that movie though. Who plays Odysseus? So
Yeah, well, you can either. It's like you can kill Brendan Gleeson, Liam Neeson, or Sean Bean. Those are your three people that die at the start of movies. But okay, Brendan Gleeson. Why am I bringing up Brendan Gleeson? Who's the only person to play Donald Trump in a feature-length film?
Oh, really? Is it him?
Yep.
Huh.
Brendan Gleeson. It was on that Showtime movie that was I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. I can't remember if it was while he's president or not. But yeah, so they could have just recast Brendan Gleeson. Obviously they wouldn't, because he's already been Menelaus. But they specifically made sure to not make it look like Donald Trump, right? They could have made it look like Donald Trump with Brendan Gleeson or something like Brendan Gleeson, but they didn't. They 180'd. It's a guy with a giant beard. Donald Trump's never had a beard. It's dark hair. It's not light hair. It's skinny guy, fit guy, bald guy. Trump is bald, but he wears a toupee. John Bernthal does not wear a toupee. why all of those inversions. That's interesting. I don't have a great answer off the top of my head, but like it's still the same sensibilities being pushed, but it's being disguised a little bit, right? It would be too on the nose. And so honestly, like I think that they're like, dude, if we make Menelaus look like it is, they're gonna think this is a specific Trump reference, which it is. It is, but they had to hide that, right? Um, so I would say it's something akin to that. And at some point, he just looks like a Hell's Angel biker. And that's just some generic American trope of like rough, tough guy, right? Meanie, soulless, cruel. But yeah, like that's essentially what he's doing is he's likening Donald Trump to a Hell's Angel biker, which I don't appreciate that. Not because I like Donald Trump, but like, if it was me, Menelaus would be a fucking orangutan wearing a tutu, jerking off an elephant or something. Like, that's what Donald Trump is to me. And so, like, making him into this tough biker character to personify America, it's outdated. That works with Bush. Totally works with Bush. Works with Obama. Maybe even Biden. It doesn't work with Trump. And so, like, I just find that disingenuous. I find it a little boogeyman-ish. And it's like, yes, Trump is a boogeyman, but you got to categorize him correctly. You don't have any of it. And so like I don't know, like that to me shows Nolan still doesn't understand America. Like he still just doesn't get America, and like I don't know, Tenet showed that more than anything. People might argue that Oppenheimer did show he understood America, but yeah, I just thought I'd point the Brennan Gleeson Donald Trump connection to sort of cement this push or undercut this push, depending on how you want to look at it. And sound off in the comments if that sparks any thoughts, please. I'd love to see where people could take that. But okay, I do want to push back a little bit against the retro visioning, retrofitting of history. Because at some point, like, that's what Shakespeare does. That's 100% what Shakespeare does. And I can't criticize Shakespeare because I have to put him on a pedestal or something. Or I can criticize Shakespeare, but, like, at some point I want to ask, why don't I want to do that with Shakespeare? And I do want to do that with Nolan. And it's not just the pedestal, right? Like, I'm totally cool with undercutting Shakespeare, probably more than anybody that read Shakespeare. You personally know that, Brady. A lot of people that talk to me about Shakespeare know that I'm perfectly content to say, no, this is some sloppy contradiction between two or three writers. It's not some genius thing. It's an accident that we've put way too much stuff onto. So I'm totally cool with undercutting Shakespeare, but Richard III is incredibly powerful, right? But it's completely historically inaccurate, right? And so at some point, like, I would just say that, like it's not even the ruining of history that bothers me about this movie, and that gets into another discussion that I'll just put on the table here, but not go too far into. But the whole discussion of historical versus mythological. That any person I bring up, I talk to about this, and I'm like, yeah, well, it's not really being super historically accurate. We got all these crazy future costumes. We got people from all over the planet. This really isn't at all historically accurate in any sort of meaningful way. And then everybody I've talked to is like, who said anything about history, Chance? This is mythology. This is mythology. And that brings it to yet another distinction where, like, and I have had different reactions with this when I ask people, is this historical or mythological, or is this fantastical, right? So, like, my buddy Ian wants to say that Nolan's Odyssey is more important than, say, something like Clash of the Titans, right? Because Ian would argue that the Odyssey is actually being mythological, whereas Clash of the Titans was supposed to be mythological, but it just reduced it to this silly fantasy monster movie, right? But, like, as I told Ian, I was like, well, dude, what do you think of that Cyclops scene? Is that Cyclops scene not just doing that same device, right? And so, like, is Cyclops doesn't do all the nobody spiel. He just it's just a monster movie, right?
Yep.
So how is this mythology and not fantasy? And so that's where it gets interesting. Is leftists, and I'm not necessarily calling my buddy Ian a leftist, although I think he can be generally categorized as that. I don't know if he self-identifies as that or not, but my buddy Ian would say something like, "Yeah, all this Jungian Freudian stuff with the guilt and Athena, there's your myth, buddy. Jung's all about myth, right?" And I don't know if Ian would actually go to Jung or not, but to steal me and Ian's potential argument, isn't Jung psychology all about myth? And aren't we going into a bunch of those archetypes? And so is this not mythological? This isn't just fantasy like Clash of the Titans, right? Um, and I just want to say, like, at this point with 21st century filmmaking and storytelling, that all of it is reduced into the same sort of LCD jumble. That I don't know if I pitched this on the Marlowe video or not, but I'm tired of the terms metamodernism, and I'm tired of the terms ubermodernism or hypermodernism. I don't think that they actually describe what this era is, this postmodern era, which I don't think that's a helpful title either. The term that I think should be used, and maybe I need to pitch this to the world, is mythomodernism. That we're now at a point with how we treat information and how we interact with other human beings and how we interact with nature, that everything is just construction of myth. And I know some hardcore materialist scientists, code writers, those kind of people, like, Chance, this isn't all just silly make up myth, but no, science is that. It's just a really careful long-term version of that. And so it's got more predictive power. But everything right now, whether you turn on CNN, MSNBC, an ad, you don't turn on anything and you just talk to somebody at the park or the store or something, it's a narrative. Everything's narrative, narrative, narrative. And yeah, surely history's always somewhat been that way, but it's also bubbled to the surface that you can't even have a discussion without the meta discussion of narrative, which is why people are calling it metamodernism. But the meta isn't the point. It's the discussion of the narrative that's the point. It's the myth itself. And it's the point right now where nobody's comfortable with myth. Nobody's comfortable with religion. Nobody's comfortable with politics. And it's because there's this realization that there is not some objective underlying superstructure to give it authenticity, integrity, or authority, or credibility, or whatever. That whatever that superstructure is some mythical thing. And we still don't know if we want to treat myth as illusion or not. At some point, this movie is like the perfect example of this for me, because this movie is it's trying to recreate the myth for itself. And it's making myths about the making of it. It's making myths about our political setup right now. It's building into some collective 21st century myth. It's trying to build something like we don't have a word for it, but like a super federal state, a global federal state, right? And that's why we have all this mixing of races and nationalities and backgrounds in this movie. It's trying to do what the World Cup just tried to do, right? It's trying to bring all these people together into this capitalist system.
Oh, brave new world,
and trying to keep it right. And I'm sure someone like Obi-Wan Kenobi or Christopher Nolan would say, no, we're just bringing balance to the Force. No, we're just bringing balance to the Force. And this is where, yeah, I'm going to take a page out of post-colonialism to attack this movie, ironically, because most conservatives are saying this is woke post-colonial bullshit, but no, post-colonialism would actually tear down this movie. If this is real woke post-colonial bullshit, it's starring Michael B. fucking Jordan, right? It's not starring Matt fucking goddamn Santa Claus Damon. Like, to be fair to Matt, like in his younger years, he could do Wiley. He
Yeah,
could do
Mr.
Smart
Ridley
and
or
Sharp.
yeah, Fantastic Mr. Ridley
Yeah,
or something, right? Or
Ripley. Yeah,
Ripley,
talented Mr.
whatever.
Ripley,
All right.
or
Or
yeah,
PTSD to
Good Will
MK
Hunting, right?
Ultra, Jason Bourne or whatever, right? Yeah, actually had some like real oomph to him or something, but
Yeah, he's become so dad jeans yes man in even within the zeitgeist that like there's no way that I could possibly watch him as Wiley. He's just like a dad with a sense of duty, right? And like maybe there's something to say about that character, but like holy shit, dude! Like Liam Neeson didn't do that already 17 times in all those Taken movies. Like Denzel Washington hasn't done that to death already. Tom Hanks hasn't. We just got to keep reifying. You got to be a good dad. Like,
I was gonna
is
bring
that
up
all this movie is?
Liam Neeson too, because now we're back to we're hitting both cylinders here, because he was he plays a dad, he plays Dark Dad, he plays Ra's al Ghul in a Nolan film, and then he also plays a guy in Clash of the Titans too, right? He plays Zeus in Clash of the Titans, doesn't he?
Yep. Yep.
Or is he in the it's Clash
Or
of
is
the
it?
Titans? I think it's Clash of the Titans.
Yeah.
One of those Titan
That's one.
in the film, in the movie title.
Yeah, could be Wrath of the Titan. It could be any of them, but yeah, that one get fucking sequels, man. um, so I still want to maybe unpack this historical versus mythological thing, even though I've tried to reduce it down to no, it's all just mythological. But I don't think that it's all just mythological in the sense of some scholarly understanding of Greek mythology. I think it's this vulgar modern day sense of mythology, and to be fair, like that's what most people are going in with. They couldn't get the Greek mythological frameworks, right? And maybe the fair argument against that should be that, well, that's Nolan's job, is to translate that, to keep that feeling but get it to you somehow. And maybe Nolan might counter with, well, that's what I'm trying to do. And then we might counter with, well, you failed fucking royally, at least for people like us. But he might say, well, look, Chance, this isn't for you. Brady, this isn't for you. This is for the rabble. But that's where it becomes different to me than Shakespeare. Right? Like, almost no Shakespeare play is just that's for the rabble. People might argue Titus, but our buddy David Richardson would intellectually, reprimand them and show them that Titus is not just a silly play. And not to say the Odyssey is just totally silly, but I guess I just need to be able to, in my own purposes, justify Shakespeare over Nolan. So, like, what is it that allows Macbeth to be ahistorical, or Richard III ahistorical, but we're bent out of shape with Nolan's Odyssey? And like, maybe one argument is just like, what's the end result, right? And like, Shakespeare's just going to be more powerful. 400 years from now, who knows if anybody's touching Nolan's Odyssey, Shakespeare will still be around.
And
right?
this movie specifically, maybe, and that's where I'll give the Shakespeare the point back, is that there's proper tension, right? Because I think we could talk about Troilus and Cressida if we want to maintain this Trojan theme, right? Because Troilus and Cressida does departure, as we've discussed, heavily from the events of Homer's Iliad, right? But it even probably departs from some of these medieval traditions and Roman traditions of the Trojan War, because we that was sort of the fun about picking apart what were the differences in Troilus and Cressida, right? And how the Myrmidons all basically bum rush or jump Hector when he's like putting on this armor, right? But after finding all the differences and actually looking at the text and sort of working through it, I thought we came up with a a really, really nuanced discussion actually going on, right, with just the setup of the story itself. And it's also not like the Iliad by Shakespeare, right? He's not even trying to do Homer, right? There's one thing, I just feel like a title just goes a long way of trying to do your own thing, right? That's where I once again even give the earlier Troy movie once again, major departures from all the stuff, right? Yeah, having Menelaus just kind of like killed right there in the first part of the third of the movie, which is obviously not what happens in all the other traditions. And so something about this tension, right? That there's actually real discussion where Nolan's Odyssey is hot medium, right? It's just feel the guilty, try to like clean your room the next morning, Jordan Peterson style, so that way you can like go about and, try to be a good boy the next time, right? But it's just totally this Freudian sort of like psychologically, post-Freudian, back to this therapy culture type crap where it's actually not begging anything to be discussed anymore, right? And like, there's actually not going on. Like, you just get some like lame action with the stuff. You don't even see the sirens apparently, which is super lame. I hear the pig transformation scene's apparently really good, but like, big deal. Like, who cares if it's just, oh, it was really creepy looking. Like, so like, what's being discussed? Like, I thought we're talking about stories and not just spectacle, right? I could go look at some cool pictures online for all that stuff, right? What's the whole point? So with something like Nolan's movie, where it's appealing to the lowest common denominator, maybe just if we're doing the casting bait sort of type stuff, but it's like very forward. Like, here's what I'm telling you. Here's what it all boils down to. Where we're still picking apart something like Macbeth. We're like, what is this play about? Is it about like fate versus destiny? Is it about ambition? Because we've gone back and forth. Like, it's so much more than that, right? It's not just like, oh, it's a Macbeth. It's a play about, the follies of ambition. Like, is it? Like, no, this is a thing about like time being tripped out and like magic and like, and intelligence and all sorts of things. It's not just like, if you feel guilty, make sure you feel guilty about it and, flog yourself or whatever, to self-flagellate yourself to exercise all your, your bad feelings. And so, there's just, it's just lowbrow. Like, I don't know how else to put it, right? There's just nothing really asking anything of you. It's just asking you to just accept, swallow all of its sort of spectacle, and it's like bare minimum, and also bastardization of the real text in of itself, right? Because pretty sure you could have, there is like some, and to not say that Odysseus is not feeling bad and not feeling guilty in certain parts of the Odyssey is also not true. There's dudes left and right that are crying, right? Menelaus is feeling bad, like I just said at the beginning of the thing, right? There's parts where he's talking about feeling bad, and they're both weeping together about all the people they've lost and how they're, and Menelaus, and Telemachus actually feel a lot of kinship, because just like, that they both had this thing about, men knowing each other during, times of war and all this sort of different stuff. And even Helen is, also has, great bouts of, remorse and, empathy at all these sorts of, people dealing with loss and dealing with, not having their families, together and blah, 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 blah. And so, with just like this one, it's just, feel bad. Okay. It's once again, it's just not really asking anything of you. It just wants you to, the only thing I ask you is not to keep searching deeper inside. It's just like, oh, here it is. Here's what I'm telling you to do. Right. I guess if we're still on this point about, where do I want to take this? Because there's so many different ways, because I like talking about the gods, and obviously there are no gods in here. It's just the Greek gods. It was just the psychological forces and things of nature that they conceptualized. And I just, the more I look into it, I'm like, I don't think that's it. I think that their like myth is truth of 1,000 men compressed into one. Like, that's what myth is to me. I think, I'm stealing someone else's words and paraphrasing it probably pretty terribly. But that's why, I don't know, you read these kids, these Greek myths, and they memorize it. Like, there's something that's actually in it that has been distilled perfectly down into this narrative form that you will not forget it. And there's a reason why you will not forget it, because there's something true about it. Like this is a true story. The gods are real. Like, they are actually real, and it's not just because of like, oh, Persephone is just like, the fall time and then winter, and then they come back up in spring again, and they just thought of it as gods. It's like, it's not that. Yeah. Like, it is that, and then so much more. It's so much more than that at the same time.
That's just one tiny, and like, I don't know. I think people with like like strong Jewish background or Hindu background or any kind of Eastern background in Taoism or something like that, that this isn't even going to work on those kind of people. Like you have to be stuck in a sort of Western Christian mindset for any of this to work, because essentially what Nolan's doing is he's apologizing for Christianity by repaganizing the gods. So the gods don't get to be gods in the sense of a Christian god, right? Of actual being of power, right? They get reduced to almost it's a modern form of shamanism or something, right? Like it's just this kind of personified, spirit that just talks to you personally. That it's not actually some semblance of power or causality, um, in like a physical sense. Whereas, like, yeah, dude, like Greeks materially thought that gods did stuff. It's not just some idealistic, emotional, psychological, hyperstructure or hyper object or superstructure. It's real. It's real, and underneath that realness is every layer of metaphor, and all those layers of metaphor are the justification for the myth. And our materialist sensibilities have like totally made us unaware of how this works, and we've just flattened it like an accordion, and we don't know how to play it anymore. And yeah, like let me see how I want to tie it, because I want to keep on this discussion, but I know I'm going to forget, so I got to bring it up now. Going back to the sort of downfall of Nolan, that's not, it's not some coincidence, and it's not just some personal journey into him growing into universalism and stuff. Like, that's part of it, but it's also the disappearance of Jonathan Nolan, which, yeah, this goes into my whole complaint about film, where actors and directors get way more credit than the writers. And, that goes back to Robert Greene's Groat Towards Wit, where, yeah, everybody thinks he's talking to Shakespeare. He's not. He's talking to Edward Allen, and he's saying, you're an upstart crow. You're getting all the fame for all the work that we writers do. And I'll be damned if Nolan isn't doing it himself, because, yeah, Jonathan never got the credit that Chris got. But fact of the matter is that Jonathan is the co-writer on all his best movies. Dark Knight, The Prestige, co-writer. He's not part of Dunkirk. He's not part of Tenet. He's not part of Oppenheimer. He's not part of the Odyssey. And I feel like something is lost there, and ultimately this is an authorship question, right? Yeah, at some point, Nolan just moved more and more towards the spectacle and away from the writing. And we're seeing that hardcore in this movie, to the point where it's all spectacle. It's The Revenant 2.0. It's Dunkirk 2.0, where we're just in this survivalist slog of emotions and animal impulses, and it's about, yeah, how do you maintain and regulate all those animal impulses? And at some point, that is shit for the rabble. I don't need to hear that. I am a god, and I can control my animal impulses. I've read Pico Mirandola. I can do that. The rabble can't. They don't know who that is. So I don't need this.
Pico de Gallo, what?
I love Mexican food. Yeah. No, good work. But yeah, maybe we can segue back to the gods here.
I just have like one scene that I want to read here from the Odyssey, and it's just like, so, the gods are characters, right? Like they're doing the council, and they're like, the beginning part. Once again, and one of the other big taglines of the movie, maybe I should say this first, and I already may have shared this on Instagram, but like one of the big taglines in the posters for this movie is and I already kind of said it earlier too here. Where is this thing? I'd already kind of alluded to this concept earlier. So here's like a poster for one of the movies here. And I already kind of made a joke on Instagram. Let me switch screens here. Because, yeah, the Odyssey, defy the gods. you know? And it's just like, that's what they're doing. They are defying the gods. And, you know, they want to say like, oh, they defied, you know, Athena. So that's why he's plagued with PTS Zendaya or whatever. But yeah, this is the tagline. This is not obviously even mentioned in the Odyssey, but one of the it's like literally on the first page of the Odyssey that Zeus is in the council, right? So they're all like, Athena's like, all right, we got to get Odysseus back home. Like, he's been stuck on this island forever, you know? And one of the things that Zeus says is, like, dang, these mortals blame us for everything. Like, and that's what I was talking about earlier, right? That, yeah, how a lot of the themes in this book seem to be like, you know, mortals kind of pushing it too far, you know, taking a little too much than what was granted to them already, right? It's like, all right, you already won, like, take your trophy, go home. And like, no, I want 10 more trophies. It's like, okay, buddy, like, here's a thunderbolt for you, like, learn your place for once, you know. And yeah, so just like this whole like, oh, we're gonna defy the gods and we're gonna like, work against them. But it's just like the opening page of the Odyssey, like, man, these mortals blame us gods for everything. They don't take any responsibility for any of their pitfalls, dude. Like, they're a piece of work. And so I don't know. And then just to maybe read some of Peter Green's translation here from my copy of the Odyssey. Not that Peter Green from Fleetwood Mac, but from UT, actually. And it's just a part where it's just about Hermes is going to go. This is like in book 5 when you actually get to see Odysseus, right? So, and he's talking to Zeus, and Zeus is like, all right, Hermes, you're going to go down to Calypso's island, and you're going to go, there you go. He's
Not
like, you're
the
going
book
to go.
he's reading from, but Peter.
You're going to go down to Calypso's island and you're going to go, work a deal with her to get Odysseus off this island, right? And I just like how, once again, this would have been cool to depict, I think, in film. Is it undepictable in film? Maybe Nabokov is sort of like, stroking his mustache. Maybe so. But I think that this is what's fun about the gods, All right, so he's going to go head there. So the guide, the slayer of Argos, which is just an epithet for Hermes, did not ignore his words, Zeus. At once beneath his feet he tied on the fine sandals, ambrosial, golden, that carried him over the deep and the boundless earth, as swift as a gale's blast. And he took the wand with which he entrances the eyes of those he so wills, while others he'll wake from their sleep. Holding this, the strong Argos slayer was airborne, flew from the high sky over Pieria, swooped down on the sea, then skimmed over the waves like a sheer water that flies along the fearsome gulfs of the unharvested deep, hunting for fish, and wets his whirring wings in the brine. Just so did Hermes traverse the expanse of waves until he finally reached the far distant island. I don't know, I just love these kinds of scenes and how just, like he's like skipping over the water and just, I don't know, like, I think it's just really, really evocative and imagistic at the same time, and just, I don't know, I that would have been kind of cool. Like, how do you depict something like that and not just, I don't know. I think you can really, really do some crazy imagery with some of this stuff. And the gods don't have to be kind of like in Clash of the Titans, because I don't like how the gods are always depicted in Clash of the Titans, where they're kind of ethereal and just kind of like talking to one another, like, oh, I'm Liam Neeson and I'm a thing. That I think that needs to be an envelope pushed here for how we depict some of that stuff, and there's some real room for doing that. And so sometimes, and maybe that should be like one of the last things here. So let me get to one more of these historical things. One more spoil thing for the movie here, if anyone's seen it. So one of the big twists, because Nolan loves doing his twists. So in this film, they're constantly referring to, I think Penelope and people on Ithaca are referring to these people called, the people. They're referring to this looming threat called the Sea Peoples, right? And they're like, oh, we keep hearing about these Sea Peoples, and they're like raiding places, and they're coming closer, and we're screwed or whatever, right? What's going on? Who are these unknown forces? We got to get Odysseus back here, right? And then it's kind of here's major spoiler here. Odysseus, Matt Damon, further reveals that the rumored Sea People were the Greeks themselves and begs Penelope's forgiveness. Okay. Because, they're Odysseus and his crew are kind of going around. They do like a little raid here or there. But people are just hearing rumors of it. Now, the Sea Peoples are actually a real attested people, right? That's like this, total anachronism. There was no one in, Bronze Age, Mediterranean that was referring to the Sea Peoples at this time. This is actually something that's mentioned only by the Egyptians, actually, right? And so, yeah, here's like a scene that they're talking about these it's around this end of the Bronze Age, and it's, people have supposed that maybe they contribute to the fall of the Bronze Age, a bunch of Bronze Age civilizations like the Hittite Empire, like Egypt sort of contracting, like Mycenae kind of disappearing out of nowhere. So it's kind of strange, like, how do you say that the Mycenaeans are also the Sea Peoples if they're saying the Sea Peoples are the ones that sort of like ended it? So a lot of people are like, ooh, no one's mentioned the Sea Peoples. That's like super cool and hip and like, oh wow, like he's reading it, but it's still kind of strange to be like, wait a second, how are the Mycenaeans the Sea Peoples if they're the ones? Because some people like to say the Sea Peoples are the Greeks or they're that these other people, but it's still a big question mark for some things. But unless you're Apokalupsis Historia, I've already done like a whole stream about the Sea Peoples myself. But what were we gonna say, Chance?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, at some point, like, does Nolan not know the difference between Mycenaeans and Dorians? Like, usually the pitch with the idea that the Sea Peoples are Greek is not that they're Mycenaeans; it's that they're Northern Dorians pushing down into, right? Which that itself is probably wrong because it seems Dorians aren't there till later, and it's not totally understood if Dorians are a continuation of Mycenaean culture or not, and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, there's so many thoughts and theories on the Sea Peoples going on right now that, like, yeah, just to say, oh, it's the Mycenaeans, just post-Trojan siege?
And the war led to collapse of other economies, and you destroyed Troy, you're destroying a major economy, so it's just going to lead to collapse of other mercantile economic systems, and y'all are bad for doing that war, and that you violated Zeus's law for doing the Trojan horse or whatever. Once again, don't forget that per the myth or per the stories, it's like Troy kind of brought it upon themselves still to some degree, right? Like it's not just totally blameless here. But if you've watched any of my stuff,
once again, that makes, like, it doesn't make sense within actual historical Greece, but it completely makes sense within this metaphor for American world police.
Yes.
Yes. We're the ones that have been trying to get rid of all the foreign invaders, but we are the foreign invaders ourselves.
Yes, exactly. That's what they're trying to do, still do it to you. And so with that in mind, let's just look at one of these interesting inversions that maybe I found, right? So here you got the Sea Peoples, you got a bunch of these, like, they kind of name their names. There's so much archaeological stuff, and they'll be like, maybe it's, maybe these people are the Sidonians, and maybe these people are the Etruscans, and maybe these people are over here. And if you've watched my Time is Money stream, or if you've watched my Mystery Tier stream, or my Dionysus Milk, Honey, and Purple stream, you find out that all those places all have connections to Phoenicia, which is around the same time that Phoenicia is getting up and running. And I've even shown this article before on one of these streams too. It's literally Phoenician.org, and they have a whole article about a couple of different articles about the Sea Peoples. And here we go, right away at the top of the article. An important element mentioned by many sources and yet given consideration by virtually none is the simple fact that in the midst of a cataclysm which destroyed almost every city in the eastern Mediterranean area, the Phoenician cities remain untouched. This turns out to be one of the keys to unlock the mystery of the Sea Peoples, an event which changed the course of history. And it goes on to show, like, okay, like Hittites, get attacked. Obviously, Egypt's getting attacked, right? Mycenae is like blown to bits. Like all we got is ruins there, and it definitely is like there must maybe at least be some sort of cordial, if not outright, familiarity or friendship or alliance maybe with the Sea Peoples and what would become the Phoenicians, right? Because the Phoenicians are kind of like, they're in between Egypt and they're in between the Hittite Empire. They're kind of formerly under the Hittite or Ugaritic Empire at some point, right? Because I should say Ugaritic or Canaanite or something, right? But it's around this time that, you got Sidon, Byblos, and Tyre suffer literally no destruction at all during this whole time period. And at the very bottom, at the aftermath here, it definitely says under the destructive force of the Sea Peoples, all the Phoenicians' powerful adversaries had been destroyed. Very convenient for them. The Phoenician cities were untouched by this devastation that happened around them, which left these peoples in an advantageous position. The historical record shows their active cities quickly began to expand their domain by placing trading posts in Cyprus, the Aegean, Sicily, Sardinia, North Africa, Algeria, Morocco, and Spain. And so it just seems to be like, and once again, what alphabet seems to be obviously spread around, maybe around this exact same time period, boom, literally, they made, most people will attest that the Phoenicians are the one that spread the alphabet, right? And I won't, I don't know if I really need to say, is it, I don't know, just like the modern city, Byblos, right? The freaking word where we get the Bible from is exactly a Phoenician city name. So we're like, some of our most powerful words are just like from our alphabets from Phoenician. All of our, like, the holy texts are written in Phoenician, or, their alphabet anyway. I've even found that early Christian theologians, right? You got St. Augustine and Tertullian who come up with stuff like, the Trinity doctrine. Those are all Punic people. They're all just descendants of Phoenicians. Like, that's kind of ironic. And just, this area is this, Western Levant area, these Phoenicians. I don't know, people can make their own connections about, Western Levant and people that control Hollywood, maybe, essentially, right? So is it this other flip-flop of, the Trojans, like, oh, they're not the bad guys the whole time, right? It's actually you guys the whole time, So it's just kind of like, it's just, so yeah, the idea of calling the Greeks the Sea Peoples when it's like maybe related to this confederation of Sea People, Phoenician orchestrated stuff is just, I don't know, just really on the nose here. And just that it's in a Hollywood movie and being like, yeah, you guys are the bad guys, It's like, wait a second, wait a second. Yeah, if we had to call it the Punic Wars, just remember, Punic is just the Latin word for Phoenician.
And to that end, I was thinking about this actually earlier, in that, he could have done this, right? He could have shown this, but the flip side is that, like, dude, if it's this easy to see the American metaphor, if he puts this in there, he is for the next 20 years called an anti-Semite, right?
Yeah.
There's nobody that's going to read Phoenician and not think, oh, this is about a Jewish mercantile class, right? Yeah, to that end, like, he ain't going to show that. There's absolutely no way that he could ever in his life ever show that. And, like, I'm not sitting here trying to say that he should have, or that I really supportive of any, like, anti-Semitic or, whatever term you want to use. But yeah, like, it reminds me a little bit of, like, and this may muddle the metaphor, but 2,000 years from now, like, you look at World War II and, like, you look at Switzerland, right? Like, didn't suffer any fucking shit during World War II, right? Everything else blown to fucking smithereens. Every other building in Germany, Poland, France, Britain, Spain, Italy, shit all got blown to smithereens. No fighting happened in Switzerland. But that's the fucking banking state, right?
Yep.
Which is to say that I don't think that the Swiss is a national polity or the purveyors of World War II, but they are the locality of elite world string pullers that ultimately run the financial system in that time and now. And I would suspect that something like that's happening with Tyre, Byblos, and Sidon, and Beirut and others. And, like, at some point, I don't know that it's Phoenician Punic warriors coming in on those ships. It could be a lot of that. I think
it's,
but
literally
those
mercenaries
are the
and
yeah.
And just what it says here, right? Yeah, whoever runs Phoenician.org,
Like,
you
what
gotta imagine.
America is Israel right now, right?
Yeah, right.
So, like, maybe he is still saying it within the Greeks,
Yeah. Whoever runs Phoenician.org, I kind of surmise that they must at least be fans of the Phoenicians, right? And so, yeah, here they say here, just the identity and origin, like, The issue has been, who are they? Perhaps the best and most ambiguous way to answer this question is to separate the winners from the losers in this epic series of battles, right? Hittite, Ugarit, totally destroyed, never rebuilt. Hittite Empire was destroyed, left only a residual fragment. Mycenaeans were fatally wounded, would disappear within 100 years. Egypt had won battles but lost the Levant, become a shadow of its former self. The winners, who constituted the Sea People's Confederacy, were tribes of people from Anatolia, the Dorians, I guess, maybe, migrated to the Levant, the Casca, Western Anatolia, blah, 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 blah. And D, the Phoenicians, who seem to have gained more than anyone else from the mass migration of land and sea peoples. So just very interesting how some of that stuff kind of lines up in that way. So I don't know. Yeah, you just go down this list of all these people, right? Because I was like, even this, I already did a whole stream, and I'm not going to dwell on this here forever. Some of these like attested peoples, right? It's like, the Teresh people or the Tieker. Yeah, where is it? Yeah, the Teresh people. And I was like, yeah, wait a second. Is that just like, it just kind of like sounds like Tsur, Tsor is actually the name of Tyr. We kind of pronounce it Tyr today, but it would have been Tura or Tsura, actually, right? And you go here and they're like, no, and I don't know, if you just do enough Sudokuing, you'll kind of find that, like, you can kind of line it up with Tyr, or at least, some kind of Tyrian lineage or connection for sure, or whatever, right? They're like, oh, no, I think these people are Etruscans, and like, oh, I think these people are Sardinians. It's like, or Sardinians. And it's like, oh, Sardinia, yeah, that was a Phoenician colony. Like, oh, Etruscans, yeah, they were like best friends with Phoenicians. Look, you have the Pyrgi tablets. They're actually like best friends, and they're comparing all, they got this fancy thing where they've got their gods, they're all best buddies or whatever. It's like, what the heck, man? Like, how come no one has just been like, yeah, dude, there's something with this, and it's just the collapse of these giant empires, and yeah, the rise of this mercantile entrepreneurial class is what the main history books will even kind of say sometimes. And so, as far as Christopher Nolan's thing, and just saying that, oh, the Greeks were the were the sea people the whole time, right? Is just, I don't know, is that just another one of these sort of rubbing the nose at some people or whatever that phrase the phrase is.
Yeah, rubbing their nose in it. Yeah.
But yeah, so once again, memory and culture. Are we erasing memory and culture? On some of these events, kind of like that or whatever. And all right, so maybe bringing it back to it, right? Because we'll say, people like to say that, oh, no one has adapted it to the screen, right? But it's just like, are they? Oh, there was some. Maybe there's another word I'm missing here. There's adaptations and translations to the screen. Are they translating it to the screen? Are they adapting it to the screen? Or I thought there was some other word that maybe I'm missing here. It's like another word for adapt, but I feel like I'm missing it. So yeah, when you adapt it, are you trying to leave behind something where you're translating? Is maybe you're actually just trying to literally move it onto the screen, right? So. With something like Nolan's thing, it's just like, yeah, he didn't really translate it. I guess he adapted it, but because when you adapt it, you're trying to obviously have to forgo something to inhabit this new thing. I'm kind of blanking on what I thought there was some other word that I actually had lined up for it, but I'm not thinking what it is. And so when anyone does adaptations, right? When you adapt Fight Club to the thing, or when you adapt any of a Batman comic to the screen. Some things obviously sometimes work out maybe better than others, but for this one specifically, it didn't seem like he was really trying to, adapt it faithfully, or just, not trying to keep the core thing that it was beforehand. Yeah, reinterpretation. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And the one last thing too is that when we do historical timepieces, when we do historical pieces set in the old world, and this was one of the major, some people will say it's a plus for this movie, right? Is that they use like common modern American not only accents but like slang. Like literally, someone in the movie says like, I've already said the word tonight, so I'm censoring myself. But someone literally says like "fuck off" to someone else, right? They're like, "Oh, fuck off." And it's just like it just screams of modernity once again, right? It's just like to hell with thee. Instead of saying that, it's just like it just has a little more. Once again, we don't have to be British essentially to make something like feel more austere or noble or something like that, right? But usually when we're doing historical pieces on films, especially if it's really, really far back, if you go in medieval, or Renaissance, or, we try to change the diction a little bit, the syntax to kind of convey a little more archaicness. But for this movie, famously, it's definitely known that they use like modern colloquialisms and modern diction, speaking, and American accents, and it's just, once again, hitting back on your post-war American police bad guy sort of type thing too. And it's like, and to say it's like, yeah, they're kind of blaspheming, if I could actually use it in that sense, in that they're profaning, epic literature, epic language, and bringing it to a level that is actually, profane. I don't know how else to say it, right? They are taking something that was like sacred and actually, revered in a sense, and making it dull and ugly, right? You took something that was beautiful and made it ugly. True Detective.
Yeah.
And once again, changing the memory again, changing the culture.
Yeah. And there's something reductive or flattening about it.
Yeah.
And I do think that there's a little bit of, I'm going to clap back for a second at you and say that some of your complaint is actually a modern sensibility. Like, only modern people can have stuff perfectly archived, right? If we go back far enough, it's oral tradition, right? And oral tradition necessarily cannot be word for word. There's always reinterpretation between the passings. But like, I do think that that's sort of the expectation now. That is something of a standard expectation, that when you are touching old stuff, you want to give it life in a chronological or historical sense. You want to depict something that is not exactly in your mode of experience. In order for that to be meaningful, it needs to be sort of translated, right? Or else it's just a hanging antecedent that nobody understands, right? I don't know what that's talking about. You need some sort of translatory bridge. But at the same time, like, I still think that Nolan's getting around all of that by saying this isn't historical. I've told you people 1,000 times, this isn't about history. This is some mythological realm. This is some psychosphere realm. But like, it reminds me of Nietzsche's critiques of Shakespeare at some point. Like, we are feeling like, I was saying Nietzsche with Wagner, but yeah, Nietzsche is both a huge fan of Shakespeare and a huge critic of Shakespeare. Maybe that's where Brady and I are with Nolan at this point. But yeah, we are a huge fan of The Prestige, Dark Knight, maybe some other early titles. But we are totally critical of him now because this has become this muddled hodgepodge. This is like, what Sidney says of 1580s drama or 1570s drama, that this is all just some incredible, bizarre hodgepodge that like isn't rooted in an idea, and like, that's fucked that Christopher Nolan doesn't understand that what's the most dangerous thing in the world? An idea. How is the guy that wrote that line not have an idea for this? But it's like, no chance. The idea is that metaphor you're talking about. It is that world police thing. It is bringing this to a modern. It's like, that's not an idea. Those are not story ideas. Those are trappings, dressings. Those are devices. They're not the holistic core of the story. And so, like, at some point, whatever critique we want to throw out probably fits, but Sidney was there first, right? And Sidney probably said it best, that, dude, you don't have an idea. This is hodgepodge of a ton of disparate, unfinished thoughts, and that you're just hoping and praying that the collision of all those things will amount to some that's greater than its parts. And I don't know, with the current response to it, I would say he has done that for people, but it didn't, isn't going to work on us. And And so whoever goes and likes that movie, they did see an idea in it. I'm just not sure what it is. I don't think they're sure what it is. And at some point, that's because those people aren't good enough with ideas, right? Um, at some point, Sydney's not just critiquing the writers of bad plays. Sydney is critiquing the audience for receiving it at all. And so, I don't know. I don't want to get mad at audiences for liking this because they're dumb rabble. They don't know any better. Honest to God, they fucking need these movies to help them not fucking forget how to breathe. I know that sounds so mean.
But just
but
ironic because like they want
that's
to
what
have this escapism, this therapeutic escapism, but then it's just like there's something so checkmarky about the casting, and that they're even speaking in a language that you just hear on the street. Like, what's even therapeutically escape about any of this? Actually,
it's the opposite, right? But that's Nolan, right? He's trying to incept all these ideas into you while making you think you're off on a fantasy adventure. And if that illusion can work, you come out saying he had an idea, this was great, this and blah blah blah. If that illusion doesn't work, then this is hogwash. This is silly. And that illusion is still there in Richard III. That illusion is still there in Macbeth. That illusion's totally there in Stanley Kubrick films. You, you have to unlock them to disillusion, and great artists can't be unlocked fully. That's the difference here. Nolan, Fincher, Villeneuve, what other names can we throw out? Those guys are really good craftsmen. They're unbelievably gifted technical craftsmen with some neat thoughts and devices, and sometimes they can Buzz Lightyear their way into a decent story. They can they don't actually know how to fly, but they can fall with style, right? But no, there are actual eagles out there that can fucking fly and look down on the rest of us. And those are the real gods. And those people are named Shakespeare, Stanley Kubrick, and in the 10, 20, 30,000 names that you didn't even know were behind those things, those are the real people that matter to me as far as artistry goes. And yeah, Nolan has ceased to be anything like a semblance of that for me, and the Prestige is still that. I can't unlock the Prestige fully. It is an enigma. It is something that has an idea at its core. And yeah, I'm still digging at that idea. So I guess I would just at some point, I've been spieling oh, propaganda's terrible, but no, dude, all art's propaganda. Let's not be naive about this. It's just, yeah, how powerful is that propaganda? And not in any sort of stupid democratic, sense, or in any industrial sense of well, whichever one sways the most numbers, that's the best piece of art. It's no, that kind of democratic fucking values, that's what Nietzsche's revolting against. That's how we get movies like this, right? That's how we get lowest common denominator. So we get all these collective abstractions that are wholly divorced from any particularity, so that there's no real meaning left. It's just a signifier without any, antecedent to it. So at some point, yeah, this movie's fucking patty cakes. It's everybody getting to, in a Sloterdijkian sense, feel like they can identify as, I am part of the Western tradition.
Yep.
I do have some classicality to me, but it also allows anybody else to have their reactionary sense of identity too. That this is anti-Christian, or this is woke, or this is blah blah blah, or this is blah blah blah. And I think that's so much the appeal these days. Everything's identitarian, and which is part of the self-making myth, which goes into my whole mythomodernism stuff. I don't care for identitarianism. it is what it is. We have eyes, we have noses. We can sense people are different. We don't have to make a billboard for ourselves 24/7. yeah, I don't know. I don't want to harp too much more on the movie. We didn't see it, you know.
Chance
But
to bring it back. Do we even need to see it at this point? Like, if anybody's seen
no,
the movie and if you ever come across this critique, like, let us know if we were actually like on point. Be like, okay, maybe they didn't need to see it. I think they pretty much have their
if
we
you
have our
were
minds
aware,
made up. But like, it's just like, do we have enough actual critique evidence to be like, I think this is where this is going. Like, do I really need to go pay money to go see this right now? Like, do I really need to? Y'all could probably see the first Green Lantern movie trailer and be like, yeah, that's gonna be bad. Like, you're just gonna know what you're gonna get into. Like, do I really need to go see it? Do I really need to? If you want, I'm just gonna have more stuff to complain about.
yeah, and like you said, it's not the movie we need. It's the movie we deserve. We don't need to see it. We probably deserve to see it, like, and but I'm defying the gods, so I'm not gonna see it. And like, at some points, I want to
Honor
like,
the gods,
you know, I want to, yeah, I'm honoring the true gods by, yeah, defying the infidel gods. But at some point, I do want to bring it back to that tagline because I don't quite understand. Like, um, yeah, maybe it's just a catchy tagline, but straight up, like, how can you defy gods if gods are just psychological manifestations?
yeah.
What does that even mean? What does that mean to defy the gods? And at some point, yeah, that's just like it's this new age Marxist rabble rousing. Like it's this kind of empty revolution stuff. Like, yeah, fuck the system, and yeah, like let's tear it down. And like, if you're actually meaningfully saying that, I'm sort of open to that discussion. I may not be for it, but I'm open to it. But like if it's just like hoorah back patting, like I don't have time for this. You're not actually doing anything. You're playing patty cakes. You're playing pretend. Um, and yeah, like as you were saying, yeah, like it's fully playing pretend in the sense that that is just a tagline. It's got nothing to do with the movie. And I know that's what taglines do, but like it's just layering on the sort of, yeah, feeling of fraudulent storytelling here. Um, and if we want, let's keep it in the oral tradition. Let's say that this is just another iteration of oral tradition done with a bunch of fancy technology, and that we will continue to orally, you know, transmit it and revise it and change it. Um, I'm I'm cool with saying that if that helps resolve it a little bit. But at some point, I like doing that because that just reduces it down to I can just say whether I liked it or not. You know, and of the 6.5 minutes total, and that's probably even an exaggeration, 3.5 minutes total that I've seen of these movie clips, I don't like it. And that's it. That's where it's at. If it's just revision the myth however you want it, it's just whatever you want to pitch it. He's the movie maker. He gets to pitch his art. Art's totally open. You can do whatever you want. If you are somebody that believes that, that's fine. But you were giving the power to the viewers, right? You're giving the power to the audience, and it's as simple as, oh, well, I didn't like it. Fuck off, um, fuck off, right? Um, so we can go there if people want to. Oh, this is just oral transmission, and this is just mythology, and this isn't anything to do with history. Okay, well then it sucks. That's the end of that discussion. Next.
Yeah.
Where do you want to go from here? Because at some point you are just reducing it to cultural warfare, and at some point maybe that is what everything is. But if you're not content with that, you don't like that, and probably don't say that shit. But yeah. Any other lingering thoughts? We could do this till the cows come home. We could call it right now. Either way, somewhere in between doesn't bother me.
I think
Yeah,
I have
I literally.
one. Yeah, I think we could probably talk about it forever, but I'll probably end it here. I'll leave about this idea of accessibility, but yeah, and I think maybe we should talk about accessibility because I think we could definitely talk about Shakespeare too here, and kind of bring that back home with not only just this Odyssey translation that everyone that Nolan did say that was inspiration, but then the translator herself was like, well, I didn't see myself in there, but it totally was. If they're using this American dialect as the script the whole time, then it is pretty much doing what she purported out to do, and that everybody lauds Emily Wilson's translation. It's so accessible, it's so accessible, it's so accessible, and it's just like, what? Yeah, you're making like you're making like, American Ninja Warrior course with like escalators the whole time, and like, like why? What good does that do anybody? That just it doesn't like train you for anything. It's not making you strive for anything, and is it not? And it's also reducing the achievements of the actual thing itself or whatever, right? And just removing its context for what actually makes those things what they are, right? So I think we could probably just, we're already hitting the 2-hour mark here, and once again, I know we could endlessly talk about this, but maybe I'll save that for another time, and I'll pull up more evidence for that sort of thing. But I thought that this is an excellent discussion. I think that we really we brought Odysseus home. We ended this Odyssey for all this nonsense, right? Because I think we really did go one deeper as far as discussing all the political factions that have sort of been, throwing their hats into the ring as far as their takes or whatever. Some are more nuanced and more interesting than others, right? But we avoided the low-hanging fruit. I certainly thought, and we're trying to bring a deeper conversation about what the heck is going on in the culture, what's the heck going on with who's actually controlling this Leviathan with these things like movies. You put the flashing thing in front of the Leviathan to get it turn its head and nod and make the last man blink or whatever all the time. Like this was a good movie. And it was entertaining. Like, all right, dude, you managed to sit and sit parked for 3 hours and do this or whatever, right? Like, I guess that's a feat in of itself. But I think
to be fair, I'm not here like every night for 2 hours. Like I'm doing it with like Paul Newman and stuff like that. Like I'm not like in, I don't know, a few of the movies I've watched recently. Like I watched Doubt tonight with Philip Seymour Hoffman, and like I felt like that. I was like, this was a good movie that I never ever want to watch again. Like it was the most well-made movie that was the worst movie. Like, because it had all this great stuff to say, great acting. Even the dialogue was really crisp. It's by this really good playwright, and the direction's nice and tight. They got Roger Deakins, the god of cinematography, shooting the movie, and it doesn't matter. None of that mattered. None of that mattered because that movie is boring as piss. Like, it's painfully boring. And it's like, what about all the suspense? Like, I'm suspensed. I'm tight. I won't be able to poop for 3 more hours, but like, I'm still bored. I am bored within my tension. I just feel held hostage at some point, and I just want to be saved.
That's what entertain means, is literally just to hold you captivated. Like, I'm just holding you down. That's all. That's etymologically speaking.
Okay. Yeah. No, absolutely. I think we can call it here. And so many other thoughts that we could talk about, and I don't think that we went for the low-hanging fruit, but I do think that we'd sort of outed ourselves, if we haven't already, that we are incredibly elitist assholes as far as aesthetic values goes. But I think everybody should be, so long as they can justify it, or try to shoot a 2-hour stream to justify it. And if you're just going to be an elitist asshole and you don't actually know what the fuck you're talking about, then it's no good.
Yep, agreed.
But thank you guys for watching, for sticking around this long. Go check out Nolan's Odyssey and tell me and Brady if we're fucking morons or not. If you don't let me know, we'll never know, because I'm not going to watch it. If you want a real movie, go check out 1987's Walker, directed by Alex Cox, who also, did a hit movie Tombstone Rashomon. Got a 4.2 on IMDb. But no, seriously, Walker's like one of the best movies I've ever seen, starring Ed Harris, about an American man that becomes basically an illegal president of Nicaragua back in the 1850s. And that one, just like Nolan's, doing the modern to past metaphor. But it's a little more tasty, a little more to bite down on. So yeah, check that out instead, or go check out 1991 movie called Black Robe about a French priest trying to convert the Hurons. Like, go watch that instead of the fucking Revenant. That's the real Revenant. Yeah, there's other movies out there, guys. There is real art out there trying to be made, and we're not talking about it because we're getting fed bullcrap. And there's worse bullcrap than Christopher Nolan in 2026. No, like at some point, he's the least worst bullcrap out there. He's still 1,000 times better than Disney, and 1,000 times better than Dennis Villeneuve or any of that stuff. But it's still not good enough. That's not an excuse. Like, just because you're a nicer guy than Hitler doesn't mean you didn't murder people if you were a murderer. Oh yeah, you murder people, but you're nicer than Hitler. It's cool. No, it's not how it works. So yeah, in the same sense, it doesn't matter if Christopher Nolan's nicer than Hitler or not. His movie sucked. That I didn't see. The end.
Yes. Shout out, yeah, or go read the original one, right? I definitely recommend reading that. Also, I'm going to give a shout out to Readers of the Lost Art. I kind of was watching some of their streams over the last couple of days, and Dr. Johannes Niederhauser, they're both on YouTube. I would definitely recommend some of their stuff as, they kind of help me coalesce some of my thoughts as well. But if that's all we have for the evening, I think this is a great point to hop off. And so, man, this is not going to hit home more than ever, but Nullius in Verba. On no one else's word, go read or watch it for yourself. I'm not going to go watch it because I don't think I need to, but that's why I say go read it for yourself, not watch it. Oh, there goes Chance. He fell over. But everyone, make sure you go check out all the links down below in the description box. Please go check out my website, kleosclassics.com, if you want to sign up for a course with me, perhaps, or send maybe a young mind over my way, so that way we can start reading some of this stuff and start injecting this elitist DNA back into our culture, right? We need to make sure we, eugenics ourselves mentally into the right place, right? To bring it back to Hitler. So, everyone, check out the links down below. Come join us on Patreon or Discord. Appreciate all the help. Thank you, Marty, for hanging out in the chat all tonight. Didn't really get to read your comments, but man, you were the man for hanging out with us tonight. Super appreciate your support. Everyone, have a great one.